the Yay. And look at all these amazing folks from really just all around. We've got Kathy joining us from Montreal, Canada, and we have Emma. Why is it that that shows, anyways, shows up as Emma Adams as everybody, but I don't know why that is. We've got Anissa from California, who's a school psychologist. Welcome, welcome. Kayla, thank you for being here, one of our lead co-regulators in Maine. Jamie, welcome. Great to have you here with us as well. And Tim, I'm not going to greet every single person by name, but I really, really, really appreciate you being here. And I would love to just go ahead and get right to it if we could. So I'm going to minimize my chat and get back to this. So why don't we go ahead and do what I do best when we first come into time together, which is just kind of get grounded in the moment. And one way to do that is to really try to center ourselves in our body experience. And so I just want to kind of start with a little bit of thymus thumping. And if you have your camera currently turned off, I would ask that you turn it on if you feel safe and comfortable to do that, just so you can see that you are not the only person engaging in this kind of movement. Even in a virtual setting, it's helpful for us as humans to see others doing things similarly to us. So yeah, let's just kind of speed that up a little bit. And then in a moment, I'm going to take a nice inhale through my nose, and I'm going to do an extended exhale and let my arms drop to my side on 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay. I needed a little bit of that kind of energy to get me going into this time with you all. So this is not my typical training. And for those of you who've worked with me, you know that. But what it is it's an unbelievable opportunity for us to kind of really dive deep into the science behind why I have one of the 4 core practices of connectors in the regulated classroom. Connector practices are, and I've said this to many of you, are play-based, okay? Connector practices are play-based. So what I'd like for you to do right now is I want you to first just actually read this slide, okay? Oops, my bad. Read the quote in the slide, and then I want you to take a moment to reflect on what you're reading here. And in particular, I would love for you to think about what it is we do today in our schools to try and address issues like social emotional well-being and or growth and youth mental health, okay? So I'm going to read the quote for you. Information doesn't do much to shape a developing brain, but play does, right? But play does. So I just am curious if that jumps out at anybody like, huh, yeah, I didn't really ever think about that before. So if you have some quick reflections on that quote and how that's landing for you, I'd love for you to go ahead and drop that right in the chat. I'll tell you how it landed for me when I first read it. And that is that I spent years as a school counselor teaching social emotional learning in the classroom environment as someone who delivered guidance, right? So I delivered guidance lessons, and I would come into the classroom and I would have all my materials and I would be teaching my students about things like sharing and things like listening and being empathic. And sometimes I would bring in my own lessons that I created, but oftentimes I would depend on other materials too and other curricula and other information, right? So, but my thought process in that was that the reason why my students did not display the social emotional skills that I thought they should was because they were lacking knowledge, right? They were lacking the information. If they knew better, they could do better, right? I don't know if that sort of resonates for anybody as like a starting place or a paradigm that you are currently walking around the world in. I'm just going to take a moment to take a look at what's coming in through the chat and see what people have to say with how that particular quote is landing for them. Tracy says play is developmentally appropriate and experiential. Lindsay says information tells, play shows. I like that, Lindsay. I like that a lot. I know this is not Emma, but it's saying Emma. With math, we always encourage experiences, manipulative games to grow fluent number sense. Love that. Love that connection you're making with play to a math, lesson to help students integrate. Play is the natural language of children. Amen. Amen. And so today we're going to do that. We're going to kind of take a very polyvagal perspective, of course, because I am a polyvagalist, and also a very evolutionary perspective about what is play and why is it so vital in our world with our students, right? And why is it so critical for their sequential growth and development? So I love already what you guys are saying in here and where play is for everyone and for any grade. Kayla, oh gosh, I love you. You know that already though. Okay, so I'm going to minimize my chat so I can see what it is that I'm sharing here with you. All right, moving along. I want you to read this quote now, okay? And in particular, I want you to take a look at the picture of the child that is sitting there at the desk. We have pushed children into an abnormal environment where they're expected to spend ever greater portions of their day under direct adult direction, sitting at desks. We leave them less time for freedom to play and explore. So I should just mention that, like, in my deep dive of preparing a new resource for folks, I have been reading as much as I can about attachment and about development, just kind of refreshing and also looking at newer information that's emerged since I last studied these things. And so I'm really kind of hardcore nerding out with the work of Dr. Peter Gray, which I will say I came to know or be exposed to his work through the work of Dr. Jonathan Haidt, who wrote Anxious Generation, right? So his reading his book helped me realize, like, hey, I want to take a look at some other play researchers and what it is that they're saying. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is a reflection of Dr. Gray's research, but not only his. Okay. But I really like Dr. Gray's research because it's pretty expansive and extensive. He's also a New Englander, fellow New Englander from Boston. It's like, why do all these people come from Boston? But they do. And since I live in New Hampshire and grew up South Shore, Massachusetts, it just resonates for me because it's my place, right? It's my place of original home. So anyways, um, again, I want you to check in with your body on how that's landing for you. To read that quote about that, especially over the course of time and with things like No Child Left Behind, legislation and efforts that we have made to get our kids on track with learning, with really the acquisition of academic skills, that we have increasingly directed their early years, their developing years, right? And that a lot of that has required them to, frankly, be quite sedentary and have very little agency or autonomy in determining how they spend their time during the course of their day. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second just because I want to actually give you, bear with me, I want to give you guys a chance to kind of see one another and to react and respond to that particular statement that you just read or the things that I am saying. Because I think, again, for folks who've trained with me in the regulated classroom, you know that my work and this framework is all about knowing yourself and knowing and recognizing when you may be starting to get defense mobilized or immobilized. And so for some of us, like reading something like that might start to build up a bit of agitation. You might notice just a little bit of tension in your body, right? So I kind of would like to just take a chance to check in and see how things are landing for folks and see where people are at. So I'm going to look into the chat and see what we have here. Again, I'm going to ask this question. When you think about the structures that we have today in school, and in particular, if you're having a hard time imagining this because you maybe are at elementary level, I'd like for you to think about it at the middle school and high school level. How do our children, how do our teens, young teens, and older teens spend the vast majority of their day? How do they do that? What does that look like for them? Love for you to drop a response to that question into the chat. Yeah, sitting. Jennifer, thank you for your response. She says, as a kindergarten teacher, I find that expectations are getting more and more, which is taking away from the ability to allow kids to play and learn through movement, as well as enjoy being a kid, right, Jennifer? It's absolutely the number one thing I hear from folks who work more at that end of development, right? So early childhood educators, kindergarten teachers, first and second grade teachers will tell you that there's just been a growing um, structure within those settings that is very academically focused in the name of rigor, right? And this idea that if we can get more of it into them earlier, that we will have gains academically. And yet, at what cost, right? At what cost? Um, I don't know why everybody's Emma, but someone said sitting. Melissa said on technology mostly. Melissa, can we just get a little bit of radical acceptance here? Let's do a little bit of jazz hands. Join me for that if you can, please. Thank you. Take a look around. Notice that. Thank you. Um, on screens, right? Sitting at a desk. Screen so much. Older learners sitting for 40 to 55-minute blocks. How about in our local school district where they sit for 80 minutes? Yeah, 80 minutes. Painful, guys, painful. Okay, so coming back out of that, I just want to share another. My thing is like today is like normally I just want to bring you into the experiences of the body and the nervous system, but I'm so excited to share with you some of this research that instead want to just like give that to you. And please know that I will share the slides today. I will share recording, and I will also, I have another like document so that like, let's say you need to be able to take to an admin or a fellow colleague some of the science that supports the importance of play and why we need to be playing more in our schools with our students and allowing our students to play more, that this will be a document you could use to share with someone for that purpose. So let's just take a little walk back in history, right? Because I do think context really, really matters when we think about these things and how things have changed through the arc of history or the course of history. So one of the things that Dr. Gray and others have looked at, anthropologists and others, is what do kids used to do, right? Like how did people used to live prior to modern age? And what's really cool about studying hunter-gatherer societies is that there are many that still exist to today and are more or less akin to ones that existed thousands of years ago. So we actually kind of know a lot about these groups of individuals or these sects of people, right? So here's what we know about hunter-gatherer societies. Children spend almost all of their time until they reach late adolescence playing. I'm going to say that again. In a hunter-gatherer society, even modern ones, children spend the vast majority of their days playing. And their play in particular is multi-age, outside mostly, and it mimics the things that they see the adults doing. Okay. So they actually learn everything that they will need to learn, which is a lot because they have to understand how to make and build certain kinds of tools, how to hunt for they need to understand like all the different fauna and flora and animals and mammals that live among them, all their different scat, their different tracks, everything to know how to be precise hunters and or gatherers, right? So they actually learn an incredible amount of information, like remarkable. And the ways in which they learn it is to experience it, to play in it, right? To have embodied experiences of mimicking and model mimicking or mirroring what is modeled around them. Okay. And so what has the way that researchers have interpreted this understanding is that play is the vital work of childhood. Play is how we learn. Okay. From an evolutionary perspective, play is how we learn. And I just love that. I don't know if you love that, but I love that for so many reasons. Um, Let me just kind of keep going here if you don't mind. Um, One of the things that I am struck by on a regular basis is how much our kids today are different. And this is very true. Okay. In fact, when I even come into trainings and I facilitate train the trainer programs, I have a broad spectrum of ages that come in. I have very veteran teachers that may be in their 60s. Sometimes I've even had people older than that. And then I have very young folks. Sometimes they're early childhood providers. Sometimes they are para educators, but they're young. They're in their early 20s, sometimes even late teens. I've had folks come into my trainings, and I can feel the difference in those nervous systems of the younger people. I also happen to be raising two of my own kids. And so I have a 19-year-old and I have a 17-year-old. And so because of that, I am in contact with young people, their friends, our community, so on and so forth. And one of the things that I am often struck by is just the level of amplification would be the word I would use in a lot of those young nervous systems. Okay. A lot of them come into social contexts and are here. Okay. They're vibing at a level of what I would call anxiety. And in fact, that's how they themselves describe their own experiences, right? That they themselves feel a lot of anxiety. And we know this across the country. We know that our kids today struggle more with mental health than ever before. And so I want to offer to you what Dr. Stephen Porges says is the role of play in development. So we got the anthropologists and we got folks like Dr. Gray who's saying play is the vehicle for learning. It's how you learn about so much in life, but play is learning, right? Unlike how we think about it in school structures today, play is something that distracts from learning. Play is something that is a waste of time. Play is not necessary. From a polyvagal perspective, Porges says play is a neural exercise that enables us to actually experience mobilization in our bodies. So that means activation, right, in the nervous system without it becoming anxiety, with it instead being an experience of joy, an experience of exhilaration, an experience of excitement, and whoo, what might be coming, right? So the anthropologists talk about play as the basis for learning. Porges talks about the importance of play and its role because it's what actually helps to condition the nervous system to tolerate activation without it becoming defense mobilization. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second here because I'm kind of throwing a lot at you already. But if you are a fellow polyvagalist, I hope you're feeling me on how awesome this is from a nerdy perspective. Okay, because now I'm giving you two very vital, what would be the word I want to use? I'm essentially edifying why play is so important for both the learning process of an individual, so sequential growth and development and learning, and because it's the best way to help train the nervous system to tolerate arousal without it becoming anxiety, agitation, rage, or conversely, shutdown, a dorsal state. I'm going to go back and just share for a second here. And I know that I am not honoring what I normally am doing when I train, which is holding space and time for us to actually get regulated in our own bodies. I'm just gonna come back to this in a second. Where are we at? Ah, no, that's not what I want. Bear with me 1 second. Why is that? Oh, okay. It's because I want to go back. Not, not, not a fan. Hold on. All right. Um, what am I trying to find? Right here. Okay. Some of you had already mentioned that screens are a big part of our children's worlds today, right? That we know that kids have way more access to technology than they ever had. And so what's happening is that we have seen a transition away from play in the school environment, but also outside of the school environment. Also outside of the school environment. When children spend time with devices, whether that's iPads, whether that's iPhones or phones, Androids or smartphones of some kind, televisions, that kind of thing, what do you think the quality of that experience is? Can anybody come up with, just think about it, when you think about it from a social standpoint or a social perspective, what are kids experiencing with technology that might differ from social play? So, social in-person play, how does that differ from play that is being carried out on technology? How do those things differ? I'm going to stop sharing for a second so we can drop into the chat and I can see what you guys are coming up with. Oh, Erica, I'm so sad for you. Yeah, loneliness, isolating, less eye contact. I so wish Emma Adams wasn't every other person because that's literally like, I'm loving you right now. All the Emma Adams in there are giving me great responses. Not being able to pick up on body language, tone of voice, nonverbal cues. Alexis, can we give Alexis, please, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, right? Again, one of the things that Haidt argues in The Anxious Generation is that our kids today have never been so disembodied, right? Never been so exposed to so many social experiences that are what he calls asynchronous, meaning there's no opportunity for attunement because they are potentially scrolling and that's how they're getting social information or social contact instead of it actually being live social interaction, right? And even like with Zoom is a perfect example of this. I don't I don't necessarily um care for Zoom. People who know me know that I really don't love this. And it's because even though this is the best approximation we have to being together, it is not the same as actually being together, right? So I take it because it enables me to be with a lot of people from a lot of places. I deal with it, but it's not the same, and it doesn't offer the same cues of safety that you get when you're actually in person with another person, right? In person with another person. So as I'm mentioning these things, and this is not all of it, but as I'm mentioning these things, which is that we have less play in schools, and our children have less play at home, like real play, what starts to happen to our own body experience? As we start to acknowledge the changes in social development, what happens to us? Yeah, right? You get tense, less movement, get tired, unregulated, right? Can you feel that in your body experience? Okay. I want us to take a look at, I want you to try and change your screen view so that you can see as many people as possible in your Zoom, if that makes sense. So I want you to kind of change your view. It's up in the right-hand corner. I'm going to go over to gallery so I can see as many of you as I possibly can. That's what I would love for you to do. Okay. On the count of three, I want you to just repeat after me what you see me doing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. One, two, three. Okay. Even in just those little tiny ways that we just were pretending to make faces at one another, there is something that shifts in the body experience, right? That is the power of this design that we're all walking around with. That is the power of the design that we're all walking around with. And here's what I want you to be able to see. I'm going to share this with you 1 second. Let's see here, come back to this. Is that you are not wasting time to be holding space in the classroom for play. And I'm not just talking about play that you could engage in with the regulated classroom. So connector practices, those are play practices. A lot of the activators are also forms of play, right? So 2 of the 4 core practices of the regulated classroom, which I'll show you in a second, have a lot of play in them, and they're very playful. But I want to say this again. You are not wasting time to be holding space for play that is adult and student engaged, but also allows your children, your students, your tweens, your teens to engage in free play. Why? Because play is such a powerful social experience that it's actually going to be providing for them the missing developmental experiences that will support their learning and their mental health. I'm going to say that again. Play in particular, and I mean, there's lots of different kinds of play. There is free play. There is roughhousing. There is nature-based play. There is structured play. There is one-to-one kind of play, right? There's lots of different kinds of play, but all these forms of play support sequential growth and development, support learning, and support our students, our children's mental health. It's also just the most natural way for us to actually build a relationship within our classroom with our own students, and for them to build relationships with one another. Again, the research is clear, the science is clear. We've never lived in a more isolated time in human history. This country in particular, but around the world, we are very socially isolated. And it's my position that this social isolation has been growing for the better part of a generation, but the pandemic really accelerated it, and technology also plays a role in it. But when we are socially disconnected from one another, we suffer. We suffer hard. And I'm not just talking about the students, my friends. I'm talking about all of us, right? And so play is a natural way for us to rebuild, to reconnect, to, again, support development, support learning, and to support mental well-being for all of us, okay? So I'm just going to kind of, just because we're getting close on our being out of time, or being at the end of my presentation, and then I'll be glad to take any kind of questions that folks may have. I want to share with you the framework in case you're not familiar with it. This is the regulated classroom framework that I developed. It consists of 4 core practices: connectors, activators, settlers, and affirmations, and 2 essential educator capacities, which is tracking your body state and recruiting the realm of social engagement. These core practices represent very specific qualities of experience that we know buffer stress and trauma and support sequential growth and development. So those connectors and the activators, they are ways in which we can arouse the nervous system without getting defense mobilized or minimizing the likelihood that we get defense mobilized or immobilized, right? And then the settlers and the affirmations are ways in which we calm the body's nervous system. The body needs both. The nervous system needs both in order to widen the window of tolerance. So we need to be able to experience arousal and settling over and over and over again to grow our bandwidth, to grow our window of tolerance. What we see today is that there's very narrow windows of tolerance. The adults and the students, we're all walking around, right? Kind of like, or very dorsal and checked out. And that's hard. It's a hard to do your work when you're experiencing that. It's hard for our students to come to school and be available for learning when they're experiencing that. So I'll just say to end today, please know that probably the single best thing you could be doing in your school day, in your work day, is holding more time and more space for play. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you feel like it's been a worthwhile bit of time. Know that I'm just briefly touching into a couple things. There'll be a lot more explained and a lot more to do with play and a new resource that I'm developing with Chrissy D'Agostino, who is an early childhood expert. And we're hoping to have that resource available some point this spring for 2025. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stay on. If folks want to ask questions, you can feel free to drop them into the chat. If you need to peace out, no problem. Just give me a little wave goodbye. I appreciate you being here with me. Amazing. Let's see. Oh, Whitney, I love this. Our school loves studio stations, centers, and so on to provide experiences of learning as well as differentiated opportunities. Goody, goody. Darren says, yes, arousal and resolution is the heart of what we do through drum circles and drum therapy. Oh, Darren, yeah. You are so speaking my language, friend. Anybody have a question? You can feel free to unmute yourself if you would like, if you feel brave enough to do that, or you can also drop a question into the chat. You're welcome, Kathy. I hope it was meaningful for you. Hope it felt relevant. Welcome, Whitney. Darren, yes, you do. You need more. I agree. Megan says, will you share the email? I'll share all the things. Nope, I'm going to share all the things. I don't believe in not doing that. Erica, I'm going to be teaching all the teachers at my school about polyvagal theory and how they can help regulate their students. And polyvagal theory is where it's at, my guys, my friends. It's like game changer, game changer. Yeah, if you want to train the trainer in Southern Central California, reach out. We would love to do one there. We were just there doing a little bit of work. Holly, yay! Awesome, Melissa. It's a good book referred to you by Billy Joe. Oh, we love Billy Joe. My principal is really trying to build on play and learning and starting with kinder, but her goal is to get it more K to 5. Yes, please, Melissa. And actually, I think you're probably from Clark County, and we are right now working on building out 2 more train the trainers for Clark County this spring. So we are coming to you, Vegas. We are coming to you, and would we be delighted. So if it's something your principal is interested in, please let that individual communicate that with the oh gosh, you guys are such a big district. I don't know exactly where it is. I just know that the counselor specialists, they are the ones that are kind of holding the regulated classroom right now. So maybe reach out to their office. Yeah, Erica, good. I want you there too. Jolene says you've reached the recording limit for your plan. What? Oh, maybe I'm in Emma's. What? Oh, that's probably what it is. Okay. The regulated classroom transform my teaching. Lindsay, and outlook as a teacher, as an early childhood educator plays so important. It's not just for early childhood. That's the biggest myth going. Not just for early childhood. Play is needed throughout the lifespan across all ages, because it helps us to build social connection, get regulated, experience activation without defense mobilization. Yeah, Lindsay, not just the 5 senses. There's 3 in the regulated classroom. We really focus on your sense of touch, your tactile sense, your proprioceptive sense, which is your body position sense, and then also your vestibular sense, which is your sense of balance. Those are the 3 that are kind of foundational to physiological state regulation. We focus a lot on helping folks understand that, and also to purposely bring in that quality of sensory experience into the classroom to get you regulated with your students, right? So the senses, yeah, the other ones, they matter. Like I'm big into aromatics. I love essential oils. I think they were always one of the most powerful ways that I helped students get re-regulated. Um, I just taught my mindfulness small group about proprioception, vestibular interoception. Erica, yes, you are my kind of people. I love it. All right, since there doesn't seem to be any questions, I'm going to let you all go and go ahead and end the meeting. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Take good care.